So I'm going to go to 12:02 and then we're going to go ahead and launch. But meanwhile, while you're looking at this opening page, you can go ahead and open the QR code. This opens up to Audubon's page on hummingbirds in our Florida region. And it's a little daunting to think that we only get to see four of them, but oh my goodness, just one is enough because they are just super fantastic. So what I've done throughout this entire presentation, and this is the first showing of the presentation, I'm a little nervous, which is hard to believe. Some people don't believe I get nervous anymore, but I do. I'm very, very excited to be presenting on hummingbirds because I think for most people, this is the pinnacle, breathtaking, awe-inspiring sighting that you can have in your garden. Jeff Wachalewski, who does Tropical Fruit Tuesdays at 2, he just did it yesterday. It's on the YouTube channel. He said, everyone remembers their first. And by first, not the first time you ever saw a hummingbird, but I think it's the first time that you see a hummingbird in your very own garden. You've planted, you've planned, and all of a sudden they're there. They are here. And they are migratory. So you won't see them all year long. So it's even more of a special treat. So we have four that can show up here, but by far, east of the Rockies, the dominant hummingbird species is the ruby-throated. And this one is not showing the ruby throat. This is a female or immature. We can sometimes see the rufous or the black-chinned. And we also have had some sightings, very, very unusual, and you'll see more about that, of the buff-bellied hummingbird at Castello Hammock. That created quite a stir. And everyone continues to ask every year, have we seen any more buff bellies? So you'll see why it's such a special treat to see them. So this is a great publication, Hummingbirds of Florida. Two of my most favorite people, Joe Schaefer and Craig H. Hugel. Craig has written lots of books on plants. He's like the Roger Hammer of Central and North Florida, and they are good friends. Joe Schaefer actually provided the funds to that kept the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program going. I was here part-time on a special grant fund that was initiated by Joe Schaefer. Hats off to both of them. But if we just read this first paragraph, centuries ago, their plumage was used to adorn Native American ceremonial costumes. Even today, some people believe that hummingbirds' glittering plumage contains mystical powers. However, most of us merely enjoy watching these sparkling gems of the bird world. And I think you guys might remember, if you watched any of my presentations on butterflies and other birds, how I'll talk about the refraction of light and the jewel-like colors that you can see. And that harkens right back to, like, you can call them the Tiffany's of the animal or fauna kingdom. And this is the legendary designer from Tiffany's, and he aspired to emulate nature, and he did. We can see as beautiful as his attempts were. I mean, as far as sparkling, gems, nothing compares to the reality of the animal kingdom and the flowers and everything. But nice try. We still like to get those little turquoise boxes. Hummingbirds, they are a new world bird. They're only North, Central, and South America. There are 366 of them. Some of them are in trouble. Some of them are very abundant. And they are called hummingbirds. I'm sure you all are aware, is because if you've ever been near them, the sound of their beating wings is a hum. They make all sorts of little squeaky noises when they're fussing at each other. They're just going to be fantastic things to explore more. So let's take a look at a couple of those things. First of all, these are some of the factoids, and don't worry, you'll be able to go back and look at this. This is all from PBS, from Nature, and they did two just incredible documentaries. One was on hummingbirds, and the other was on super hummingbirds. And you have to watch both. You'll have to just go back and catch both of them. The links are everywhere throughout this presentation. If I don't inspire your imagination, these will finish the job for you. So um, just some of the fascinating super hummingbirds. This is a little short video of some of the aerobatics that hummingbirds will do right in front of your eyes if you have them in your landscape. I've seen this many times where they're just doing this like aerial kind of dance that would make Top Gun seem like a snooze fest. So just amazing. So some great little factoids here. They run at a high temperature and they lower their temperature. They almost go into like just this deep hibernation type slumber. There's a little more, let's see. Let's go through some of these big slide by slide. And thank you. This is PBS Nature. 42% of their body weight, 4.2%, sorry. So if you were called the bird brain, you would want to be a hummingbird because that is the largest bird brain of all bird species. So I imagine that a lot of that has to do with how they see color and they can react and balance. But bird brain, go ahead and call me a bird brain. I'll be happy to accept that. 250 times per minute on the wing beats. That is average. Some are up to 500 beats per minute. That's a loud hum. And their heart rate, wow. In flight, imagine if they're engaging with a territorial male or fighting over the nectar. That heart rate probably goes up. Quite the opposite of zombies, even resting 250 beats per second. Over 1,000 flowers visited per day. I could just sit in my yard. Unfortunately, I moved, so I'm going to have to start over with a blank palette on my garden. But I used to sit and just watch them come back and not visit the same flower, but go to the next one. They'd fly a little circular route, rest, survey their pattern, and come at it again. I'm also convinced that flowers will refill with nectar throughout the day. I'm hoping it's sort of like renewable, but I'm sure somebody does a study and just sits there or puts the camera on it, that you will see that eventually that flower replenishes the nectar. Of course, that could be really tough in dry season right now. So their hummingbird wings move in a figure-8 pattern, and that's why they can seem to just like change direction up, down, left, right in a heartbeat. Maybe maybe only UFOs could do this. We're not sure, but amazing little creatures and what they can do. And their bones, they're super lightweight. Some are porous, and I think they might even just float. They're so light. We've certainly seen some skim over the top of a surface of water and stay up. But yes, there's a lot of energy to power that body, and it is just a super. If you look at how Mother Nature designs things, life to survive, this one's an amazing story. And wow, okay, that's a long, thin bill. And inside that bill is, we'll see that in a few minutes, is a tongue that is it's two sections. And it's not actually sucking, but it's pumping it. It's pretty interesting what they have discovered about how hummingbirds sip flowers, the nectar from flowers, and just how fast they can do it. And of course, they are pollinators. Make no doubt about that. Oh, their eyes. This is one of my favorite parts. They're large for their size, and they have more rods and cones than human eyes, so they can see colors better. That makes you wonder. My oldest child and I always used to joke about we could see colors that other people couldn't. I wonder if we have like a little bit of hummingbird eyes in there in our DNA, but we could just see the different colors. We're going to talk about color a little more. So their tongues, 13 licks per second. How fast can you lap up that milk? Or your cat or your dog, 13 licks per second. They can pretty much drain that flour and it's gone. Land, insert, gone. So if you're fascinated by these, um, there are 366 hummingbird species, and every single one of them is listed on Wikipedia. And every one of these pages will open, is linked to a photo, and will open to a page on that hummingbird. So people of the bird world have done a very, very good job of making sure they are documented. And also, a lot of it is reference to their status, their conservation status. This was one of my favorites, the Antillean crested hummingbirds. I'm never weary of, oh, we don't have that hummingbird, or we don't have this one. That west of the Rockies, they have more hummingbirds. I am just extremely grateful and thankful to see my yard full of ruby-throated hummingbirds and an occasional, you know, other visitor. I'm just so happy that I get to see them at all. So here you go. This also tells you which ones are threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. This is the red list, threatened species. Some of them are very strong. However, some of them are indeed threatened. And you can see that nest, it's tiny, tiny. So they have to have 1,000 flowers a day. They have to have the habitat to survive. And of course, I think, we're looking at where are they inclined, and it would be those areas where there's broad scale clearing of forest areas where all of these flowers in the Amazon and Costa Rica, these exotic, beautiful species of flowers full of nectar are being lost. So interesting to know, there is a little bee hummingbird. Go back and take a look at a photo of that one. A little homework for you. So coming up, since hummingbirds are migratory for us, as they are for most areas of the Americas, World Migratory Bird Day is coming up. And yeah, what is that date? Well, it happens twice a year, and the first day will be May 10th this year, and the second day will be October 11th. So this begs the question, when are hummingbirds here in our South Florida landscape? And we always kind of have this little hummingbird network going on. Have you seen them? I'll send an email to Eric over at Costello Hammock. Do you have hummingbirds yet? And he always gets them before we get them here at the extension, which is a good thing. So, but they usually will be here sometime October, maybe even as early as September. But I've noticed they're pretty much gone by April. And that may have to do with how dry it is. I can see some of the nectar plants in my house that I just moved from are really, really dry, and they're not producing fresh flowers. As a matter of fact, one of them, and I'll make note of it, has started to produce seed. It's just given up on making some fresh flowers. So very, very good message this year for World Migratory Bird Day is we need to realize that we need to create shared spaces in bird-friendly cities and communities, and certainly in your yard. And that's what we're about to do. Let's talk about how we can get some of these guys into our backyards and provide a home and a space for them. So just a little more about that. Did you know you can put your cats on a leash? I don't know if Dalton's tried that. I might try that myself, but my cats have become indoor cats now. So on our extension Gardening for Solutions website, this is for Florida, we have a publication on hummingbird gardens. So you want to get as many nectar sources in there as possible. And they seem to be attracted to these tubular flowers, and they seem to gravitate towards the red. Um, we'll just take a look at the ruby-throated. This one is pretty much all over America. That is a mature male, full red throat, beautiful, and you're going to see the green on his back and his head just kind of shimmer as the light changes, as it bounces off on and off. And you can see here, west of the Rockies or the Great Plains, that's the range. Now, we migrate down to Miami in the winter. So they're not here all year long, but this yellow part, 85% of the range, they're there almost all year long. And this will also take you to, is it improving? Is it expanding? What's happening? And just to stop for a moment, this is off of Audubon's website. And of course, this is John James Audubon's, one of his drawings and paintings where it's full of ruby-throated hummingbirds. And there is a place on that website where you can download any of his original works and print them if you want them to hang in your home. So this is the amazing buff-bellied. This one caused a huge stir when it showed up at Castello Hammock. It's larger than a ruby-throated. It's 4.5 inches, which you say, geez, that's not much, but that's kind of that's a larger size hummingbird. And it rarely migrates. Its nesting season, which would be where it migrates from, nesting wherever it nests is its home. It's mainly Texas, April through August, and sometimes though they will briefly migrate short distances, and more uncommonly they will migrate as far east as Florida. And I believe the reason that was attributed to seeing them in Florida that year was that the flow of the North Atlantic oscillation, the wind flow had dropped down and was lower. So it was an interesting start, and we think that it just got blown across that area with the change in the jet stream. So you can take a look at that. Maybe they might see them in Louisiana, and definitely very rare, but it's counted now as a gain in the range of this hummingbird. So that would be a good thing. Maybe we will see more of them. We've heard reports that some have even been sighted in the Bahamas. So that's good, they're holding strong. So there's a female sitting on the nest of the buff-bellied, and you might note that the male buff-bellied is he mates with many females. He doesn't help build the nest, and he doesn't help with raising the young. So maybe he just distributes lots of those little turquoise Tiffany boxes or something like that. But just looking at the colors, and this looks like a pencil cactus, so you can tell just how small and delicate, and you'll note that the lichen appears really large. Again, that is how small a hummingbird is in a nest. So let's just look at how does that buff-bellied attract so many females. It's all about his iridescence. So we know that the males of the bird world, they put on the show. They have the colors, they do the dancings. Some of those aerobatic flights for, oh, you can't have my nectar. They're probably, I am the better flyer. Look at the maneuvers I can do. But just what makes those colors so incredible. And I mean, I've always noticed this, and wow, I'm just like looking at different things for this presentation. And Audubon has this whole section that talks about what makes the lights dance, the show in hummingbirds. And it's keratin, and they're also talking about you can see that rainbow shine in your fingernails and turtle shells and pangolin shells. And I haven't checked it out, but we can see that dance of light in butterflies too. So what what creates this? It is the light going through the prism, and it shortens and lengthens. So the color as it goes through these sort of crystalline structures, so that light can change as these creatures move. It scatters the wavelengths, making some longer, and you just get the richest tones of blues and violets and greens. So rich, in fact, that long before there was this color tracking system, for like printing and an interior design and blah, 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 birders had created color charts. So there weren't all of these big, beautiful photographs. There were paintings, and they were trying to like all be on the same page about what were the colors of this bird species. So they actually made these incredibly fascinating color charts. If you're that geeky like I am, it's a nomenclature of colors for naturalists. And you want to make sure that you're chromatically correct. You can refer to this too, or just look. I mean, for me, life is color is like the chocolate sprinkles on life for me. So I think we've all seen it when we're looking at a peacock. Yeah, we might kind of think of them as a nuisance in our landscape, and wow, they can be really loud, but just look at their colors. Who would ever have thought of all of those color creations? Peacock blue. Tell me, I want a car that is peacock blue. Well, what color is that? Make it happen. So here's the bird world. And most of these would be the male. And just look at all the beautiful colors there. No wonder butterflies are the flying flowers, and so are birds as well. Open your eyes. The world is gorgeous out there. And you can bring this into your garden. So this is a great good news. The last of before we start to talk about plants. I just found this because I'm so fascinated by the colors of hummingbirds. This photographer, she has a life, it's just she has a disease that makes her weak. And instead of tromping through the world taking photos, she's sitting in her garden taking these incredibly beautiful photos of hummingbirds. And she doesn't jump out of the bushes like it says here. They actually will come and sit next to her. Yes, hummingbirds in your backyard, if you don't make any sudden moves, they will actually get used to your presence. They will become accustomed to you, and you can sit and watch them. And as I said before, they do repeat their flight pattern. So if you know where they're going to rest, you've lost track of them, you can just look up at that branch and wait for them to come back. They might get scattered by another hummingbird, dive bombing, but you'll see them repeat their patterns over and over. They'll go to this shrub, to that shrub, different types of flowers and flavors of nectar. So here we are, 10 plants. And I mentioned that I moved, so now I have a blank palette in my yard. What am I going to plant first? And one thing you'll note from all these commemorative stamps, and by the way, When was the last time a stamp was 29 cents? I know the answer. You guys can fact check that. But you'll notice that all the flowers are very similar. They're red and they're kind of tubular shaped. So you'll see that repeated. So first of all, I haven't unpacked this book yet, Attracting Hummingbirds and Butterflies in Tropical Florida. You can order this through the UF IFAS bookstore. You can pick this book up at Native Plant Day at Costello Hammock, March 22nd. Here's the QR code for that event. And you'll probably see this fishing guy or fishy looking guy, Roger Hammer, there. He was chief naturalist for Miami-Dade County, retired years ago. And thank you, universe. He has been writing books on butterflies and plants and attracting hummingbirds. And there's one on foraging native plant, Florida. So he's a gifted photographer, and he's been putting all of that accumulated knowledge down in books that are just fascinating to read. And he talks a lot in this book about creating a Florida-friendly landscape. Thank you. So that is the backbone of what you need to do to provide the habitat for any wildlife, for yourself to enjoy your garden. So grab this book or borrow a copy and come to Native Plant Day, because it's all going to be about nature and the wildlife that they support and attract to your landscape. It's a fun day. It's one of my favorite days of the year. So first off, I guess I have to go right back to plant of the year for many, many years, firebush, Hamilla patens. And there were times when this would get beaten up by a hurricane, or it got just gnarly looking from lobate, lax scale. And people would say, why do I just keep growing this and trying to sell it? And I remember talking to my friend over at Plant Creations, because it is the hummingbird magnet in your yard. It is the first thing that they will go to when they have migrated down each year. Guaranteed it's going to attract hummingbirds. And here you can see a tala resting on it, but they're not going to be able to take the nectar from the firebush. Their proboscis isn't long enough to reach down to the nectar. Take a look in the upper right. This can create a nice screening hedge as well. Sometimes it'll grow more like a tree. We have one here in our employee parking lot, and we've actually had mockingbirds nest in there. It's a larval host for some sphinx moths, and I have seen the Pluto sphinx moth caterpillars on it, and that moth on my back door, attracted to the light from the kitchen. I am just fine with that. Go ahead and eat my firebush. It will come back. Love to see the rich velvety green of that moth. And it is nectar for so many butterflies, and birds will eat the seeds. So the mockingbird had plenty of seeds, although she was feeding her young protein. She was feeding them caterpillars. So hummingbirds feed on the flower nectar. It should be exclamation points. And this is from my favorite plant database, regionalconservation.org. Make sure that you go to this website and visit it, put in your zip code. If you don't know how to use it, please talk to me. They will also be at Native Plant Day. So, but don't mistake this. This is firecracker. It is also noted as attractive to hummingbirds. And on our UF IFAS assessment, we listed as not invasive. However, big caution on this, because down here in South Florida, I have seen this just seed itself everywhere. And it can take over, and it's very difficult once it gets a hold to move. So I would say there are better choices than than the firecracker. This is not native, but it's a shrimp plant. And after Hurricane Wilma, that was in 2005, I believe, my neighbor and I were standing there talking over the fence, and we had been, this is when I lived in Miami Shores, or Springs rather, and we had been purposely adding plants to our yard for butterflies and hummingbirds. And we're like, where did the hummingbirds go? I wonder how they survived. And we looked down, and this little low growing Bandagina shrimp plant, Justicia, had hummingbirds on it. So it escaped unharmed, and there were hummingbirds feeding on it. So they hid out somewhere and survived. Watch this one, it will climb up into everything, but it doesn't appear that it throws its seed everywhere and takes over areas. You might need to just, cut it back every now and then. This was the landscape in Miami Springs, May after Wilma in 2005. Big tree got knocked down. It was invasive, all of this light. And this is the porterweed in full light, just in just glorious. And my irises bloomed, and yeah, the garden was beautiful for that brief few months. After being destroyed, it came back just glorious. So this again is regional conservation. This is a very, very important nectar source. It's also a larval host for the tropical butterfly, and it is nectar for so many butterflies. And I'm not sure, yep, it says and hummingbirds. So I have been in my yard just watching this plant catch the light in the morning sunrise and seeing a hummingbird come into that light. Just must have for all that it provides for. And yes, it has the nectar that hummingbirds will love. So the salvias, all of them, native and non-native. It's the largest genus of the plant world in the mint family. This is the purple one. And I've been trying to find, this may be cultivated now. It used to be very difficult to find. But I want to make sure there's a little word of caution on salvias, because this one has been hybridized and really doesn't have nectar. So you'll see this in the big box stores, and it'll have the tag on it, salvia. But you might have a hummingbird or a butterfly or a bee or any pollinator show up, but you'll very rarely see them go in and try to extract nectar, because we're pretty sure it's sterile. So, wow, I didn't give you a lot on salvias. Oh, go to regionalconservation.org. Salvia coccinea is our native. Sorry, I didn't add another slide. There's the photo. That is, every butterfly gardener's has this plant. It's debatable whether it's native to this area or not. If you're not near a natural area and we don't need to worry about it invading, then for sure have this in your garden. And you'll get everybody on it, all of the butterflies, big butterflies, little butterflies, they'll all come, hummingbirds too. And in my old yard, this purple and this next plant created what I call Hummingbird Alley, the magenta fire spike that were growing together in the house I lived in at the Fruit and Spice Park. Shout out to all my friends at the park. Here's the card they gave me yesterday. I moved and I'm going to miss them. But they'll make sure they keep the hummingbirds company. Between this plant and the purple of the salvia, that was just set a chair and watch the hummingbirds. There's usually about 5 or 6 of them in that area of the yard at one time. So this grows easily from cuttings. It can be found on our Gardening Solutions website. And fire spike also comes in red, but we found out not too long ago that the magenta is actually a little different, which is why you may have noticed if you've ever grown this, it's a little larger leaved and it's more robust. Right now in my yard, though, it's so dry. This is kind of flowered out and is trying to produce seeds, but I've never really seen it grow from seeds. Although sometimes when we get really, really dry, we'll see that some plants are stressed to the point where they will produce viable seed pods. But this is easy to grow from cuttings, and I'm going to make sure that we start plenty of those here at the extension so we have them to share at our workshops and presentations in the future. Pintas. This is a big box plant. You can find big box store, not big box plant, big box store plant that you can find every day and in lots of colors. And don't answer this, Dalton, but anyone who wants to put in the chat the name of this butterfly might get a special treat when they come to see me at Native Plant Day. Maybe you'll get an extra packet of seeds. So just put in the chat, which butterfly is this? And I don't know how they got them all to just pose for that photo. Just kidding. So this is usually a really good nectar source, but a little bit of housekeeping on pentas. You need to deadhead the spent flowers. And this is like an old gardening skill that we kind of lost track of. And you can see new flowers, you can see the buds, but you can also see the spent flowers. The quicker you pinch these off, the quicker the amount of time this plant will stop trying to make seed, which is a very rare event, and it will get to work producing a new bud. Actually, two. Two will spread out with new flower heads. So you'll see this just like full of flowers, and then you'll see nothing. You'll go, what's happening? Don't go in and prune this down. I got this little pinch with the fingers. I guess I could be really mean if I wanted to with my pinch, but that little pinch is just a perfect. I'd love to teach you guys the pinch, but it's a gardening skill. You should develop it. You can do it with a pair of little scissors if you like, but not pruning shears. They're a little too heavy. I actually buy a extra pair. The pruning shears are just a little, and these are dirty, a little too thick. I buy an extra pair of kitchen scissors that I use only in the garden. I hope. I hope I don't get them confused. Anyhow, but you can also learn the pinch and the right pressure, and you don't need to constantly be snipping with scissors. So pentas come in lots of lovely colors. A word to the wise, though, the ones that are white usually grow shorter and more compact and need maybe a little more shade. The red and the pink seem to grow taller and robust. I love the purple ones too. Get all the colors in the garden. So cigar, anyone? I was doing the landscape assessment, not the landscape assessment. I was certifying a landscape, and they had this little cigar plant growing as a border around their driveway, and it was alive with hummingbirds. That tubular shaped flower again, and that's a female ruby-throated right there. And I'm like, wow, I have to have this plant at my house. And, it's a pretty cool plant. It's not native. It doesn't get out of control. It behaves itself, and it provides for wildlife. So it's Florida friendly. And you can grow it in a hanging basket, which is where I saw the first hummingbird looking out the window at my house in Miami Springs. That moment stopped my breath. I was actually on the phone and had to tell, I am sorry, I had to stop talking. A hummingbird just came to my cigar plant. Wow. And it was a hanging basket right by the window. So Gardening solutions, they talk about freezing. That rarely happens here, but sometimes you might want to just cut it back a little to make it more compact. So all of these links will be shared with you. I'm not going over every single detail. I'm leaving things for you to explore. So, wow, who knew? This is aloe. This is a soap aloe. This is the one that has a little more gnarly prickles on it rather than the aloe vera. And in the background here is another plant, which I didn't feature in this. It's, what is it, Turk's cap. It's a hibiscus, and you'll see how long it is. Hummingbirds can actually get their bill all the way down and have their tongue reach the nectar. So they'll make a little precision insert in the side. This plant is the one as a Florida native kid running around barefoot for the summer. We would pull those off and suck the nectar out of them. So good. And occasionally you would pull one off and go, no nectar. And if you looked, you'd see the little hole where the hummingbird had poked through. But you'll see them come readily to the aloe, which will bloom almost all summer. And that's the soap aloe. It can go in full sun or partial shade. Not if it gets in too much shade, it just won't flower. And it's very drought tolerant. And it talks about red, orange, or yellow. Well, this is the aloe vera. And it was interesting to note while I was looking at good photos of this that aloe is grown in big plantations. And we know that this plant can get very large. I've had it with leaves like this and the flowers standing up about 3 to 4 feet. And I've watched in the winter time when this is flowering, bees just like push their way into those tight tubular shapes to get at the nectar because it will definitely keep blooming through through the winter time and the summer. And it's also just good to have around the house. It can help with burns. I've done it myself where I've used the aloe, and it's used medicinally, so it's grown commercially. And I will also share long ago when I was out in San Diego for Justin coming in off the first submarine deployment. And it was springtime in California, and I just saw the hummingbirds everywhere, all over aloe. Um, it was just amazing. And those were the hummingbirds west of the Rockies. I didn't even know what I was looking at. There were so many of them. My jaw was just open the whole time. So, but one of the things that for sure is a magnet, this is the Pavonia bahamensis. This is over at Fairchild. It's a featured plant there, but it is also growing profusely here at the extension office. Again, it grows from cuttings, so maybe we need to get some of these started. And this plant is a magnet for sure. It's native to the Bahamas. It's drought tolerant. It'll get about 10 to 15 feet tall. It doesn't get very wide, so you might want to group them together to create like a more, a nicer specimen. But it's a guaranteed. If you walk out there right now, just beyond our garage, you will hear the hummingbirds kind of like fussing at each other when they get too close. It's like a squeaky wheel sound. Um, so it's an excellent choice. We're not going to cause any disruptions in nature, but do not plant this near a natural area. So one of the plants that is full of hummingbirds, definitely at Castello hammock is the Chinese hat vine. It comes in several different shades of reds to ruby to orange. And this is definitely a plant that you want to have. First of all, it blooms profusely in the winter, which is our time for hummingbirds. So that's September through April is the time when the hummingbirds will be here. So this plant will be full of nectar, drought tolerant, and it will welcome the hummingbirds, and it's beautiful to look at. So, but I have to add, and I think this is my last one or next to the last, and then we have time for questions. When we had our Christmas celebration, I think it was the year before last, up on the upper deck here at the extension, we have Bahamas strongbuck, or strong bark, um, planted in front of that, and we were elevated, and we were at the perfect height to just sit and watch the hummingbirds feed off of the flowers of this plant while we were having our holiday celebration. It was just like, wow, what a show. And some people on our staff had never really seen them that close. So it was the first time, and goosebumps for quite a few people. And birds also are going to savor those berries. So this is a win-win-win plant. Nectar for all sorts of butterflies and pollinators. Birds for the berries for the birds. Why do I say that backwards? But it will bring the hummingbirds, and it is fragrant. So this is definitely must have for my new digs. Got to get one of these in the yard ASAP, and as big as I can afford. So I'll have a shopping list when I go to Native Plant Day, but I'm going to be mindful that anything we plant during the dry season right now is going to have to be monitored. We're between 8 and 10 weeks away from rainy season kicking in. So when we plant these things and it's not yet rainy season, we have to watch them like the little babies they are. Even though they're native, they're supposed to grow here. We break some of those fine root hairs when we plant, and it's to get established. So, and you'll be established in the driest part of the year that's also hot. So that's why this time of the year, now in between when rainy season actually starts, are one of the more stressful times of the year for plants and for wildlife out there. But we can help them. We know what to do. I'll just use water from my rain barrel. So don't forget this presentation. This is a much earlier one. Best pollinator plants for Miami-Dade County is also on our YouTube channel, but it's not in your backyard series. So there's the QR code. You can visit this one and see more hummingbirds, and you can see, yes, I brought that purple rain barrel with me to the new house. Here's my contact information. Wow, it's 102. So we'll see you. You can talk to the master gardeners at the fair. We'll see you at Native Plant Day. Get in contact with any questions you guys have. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Definitely. And once again, this will be uploaded to our YouTube. But thank you everyone for attending. I hope you all learned something today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Yes.
And thank you again, Barbara, for
Thank
presenting. That
you.
was awesome.
You're welcome. You're
Have a
welcome.
good one, everyone. Thank you.